Speaking to parents of young children, this debate on Bill C-35, the Canadian Early Learning and Childcare Act, is about you and the type of support you need from your government while your children are preschool age. You will find that the Conservative caucus and the majority of the House supports this legislation at this stage. But you will also find two competing visions for the future of childcare in Canada. The Conservative vision flows from our belief in small government and big citizens. We respect the agency of parents to make the childcare decisions that meet their individual needs. That means we must make sure families have financial flexibility to create the life they dream of for themselves and their children. To do that, we have to make life more affordable, lower taxes, and leave more of their hard-earned dollars in their pockets. I was part of the previous Conservative government that promoted income splitting for families, implemented a child care tax credit and the universal child care benefit, and we did so with a balanced budget. The child care benefit was a direct cash transfer to Canadian families that gave them more flexibility in their child care choices with no strings attached. It was so well received that when the Liberals came to office, they decided to keep it in place and rebranded it as the Canada Child Benefit. The benefit was universal and supported the needs of every child in Canada. Unfortunately, the vision of the NDP Liberal government fails to meet that standard. Bill C-35 will not help every preschooler in Canada, not by a long shot. This legislation flows from their core belief that government is the best solution to societal problems. That's why the bill gives more power to the government to decide who gets child care support and who will provide the services. What they are offering is an Ottawa knows best solution, forcing provinces to give the federal government more control over their jurisdiction. For example, the child care agreement with BC will direct $3.2 billion into the child care system with one key condition, that those dollars only be allocated to run regulated daycares. That means families that choose to have a parent take time away from work to focus on the most formative years of their child's life will not benefit from this spending. Parents working shifts beyond the hours of operation of regulated daycares will not receive any further support. Parents who prefer to rely on family members for childcare won't receive support. This includes new Canadians, many of whom are waiting for the arrival of grandparents to help with their childcare, but are stuck in the Liberal-made backlog at the Immigration Department that is well over 2 million applications long. Many Indigenous parents who distrust childcare institutions, given their family experience with residential schools, will not receive support when they arrange childcare alternatives. Parents in rural and remote communities where regulated childcare is often not available will not get a nickel of support. And for those who are able to align their schedules to benefit from this program, they may have to wait years on a wait list. That said, the child care agreement with British Columbia will help some families, but far too many are being left behind. After 8 years, I expected an inclusive child care approach from the Prime Minister because, after all, it's 2023. His Deputy Prime Minister promised better. When she introduced the child care plan in her budget, she said, and I quote, "This is women's liberation. It will mean more women no longer need to choose between motherhood and a career. This is feminist economic policy in action," end quote. This is typical of the Liberal government. Big promises, but no follow-through. Bill C-35 and the related childcare agreements fall demonstrably short. Instead, the Liberal government implemented a program, frankly, straight out of the 1970s, when women were generally limited to typical 9-to-5 jobs. Speaking as someone who was a single mother for 4 years following the death of my first husband, and as a woman who raised 4 children with a career in law and politics, this program is certainly not feminist economic policy. I don't know where the Liberals have been for the last 50 years, but while women have been breaking the glass ceilings of every industry and every realm of life. Have they really noticed? Women are leaders in the military, policing, medicine, aerospace, engineering, mining, and resource extraction. They're on the cutting edge of research and development. They are bolstering our food supply chains as agricultural producers. They are manufacturing the cars we drive and designing the transit systems that we rely on. Many women are taking up jobs in the skilled trades, helping to construct the homes and highways that we need to build up our great country. Women are thriving in industries that were once male-dominated, and they need flexible childcare options that meet their needs. The idea of a national childcare program is a recycled Liberal election promise from the 1980s, but it doesn't seem to have evolved with the times. John Turner promised the program in 1984 and 1988, but couldn't win a mandate. Jean Chrétien made a similar promise in 1993, but failed to deliver the program despite having successive majority governments. Liberal leaders ever since, including Martin, Dion, and Ignatieff, all made similar promises, but never got it done. The current Prime Minister copied and pasted the program into their election platform, but failed to modernize it for women working in today's economy. And to make matters worse, the program fails to live up to the standards set by the courts. In 2010, as an administrative law judge with the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, I presided over the Johnston case. Fiona Johnston worked rotating shifts as a border services officer. Her childcare preference was to rely on family to care for her children, but her family was only available 3 days a week. She sought accommodation from her employer, the Canadian Border Services Agency, requesting that she work full-time with extended shifts over those 3 days. Her employer refused her request, believing they had no obligation under the Canadian Human Rights Act to accommodate her personal choices around childcare. After hearing testimony from several childcare experts on availability and quality, I made a precedent-setting decision that found the CBSA discriminated against Fiona Johnston by failing to accommodate her childcare request. My decision, which has since been upheld by the Federal Court of Appeal, protected childcare choice as a right for working parents under the ground of family status in the Canadian Human Rights Act. I would hope that a national childcare program would reflect the ruling of the court by supporting the childcare choices of all Canadian parents, but sadly it falls short. In fact, the bill itself is a half-hearted effort. After 8 years to get it right, after 8 years when they could have gotten it right, most of it is inconsequential. A lengthy preamble, a declaration, and some guiding principles make up most of the bill. The one thing the bill does is establish an advisory council to advise the Minister of Families on childcare going forward. I have 4 pieces of advice for this council to consider to help families take control of their childcare choices. First, find solutions that help all parents in the modern economy. Second, empower parents to make childcare choices that suit their needs. Third, refrain from dictating to provincial governments how to deliver those services. After 8 years, it's difficult for other orders of government to take the federal government seriously when they can't even issue passports or process visa applications. And fourth, find ways to give families more financial flexibility to build the lives they want. The Liberals can start by axing their plan to triple the carbon tax. They can rein in government spending that is driving high interest rates and inflation, which is the cruelest tax of all. To conclude, Conservatives will vote to send the bill to committee and will seek to amend it with a clear objective: to make sure the National Child Care Program respects the choices of all Canadian families. Thank you, Madam Speaker.